Hi, this is Damien from AtHope, and I am an axiological atheist. And today, an axiological atheist can be simply understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. And today, I'm going to talk to you about sound thinking and presumptive value, axiology, and disciplined rationality. Alrighty then. So let's first talk to you a little bit. I'm an axiological atheist. Let me just give you a real quick understanding about that. So axiological atheism, to me, in a sense, hinges on value and disvalue. And value in an axiological sense is not just limited to value in a normal context. It's also worth, benefit, good. It would also be, truth. Things that have to do with making the judgments. The value of something. So, and it has to do with disvalue, like I said. So it disvalues evidence-less beliefs. In other words, evidence-less, like, so when someone says, I believe in a God, and I ask them, well, what evidence you have, and their evidence, lacking, they lack evidence. In other words, their presumptive value of it having a value due to a justification is an error. They don't have the value that they're claiming, or they can't produce to justify the value they're claiming. And thus, in that sense, it's atheism would be the conclusion. So, disvalues also supernatural speculations, and this has to do with even the language that they're using to try to say things like soul or whatever, and thus, to me, it inspires agnosticism. The questioning of the theological non-cognitive position, that agnostics hold, is that, the talk of God and other worlds and ultimate power, and these are all things not, demonstratable in reality. So until they're demonstratable, they can, in a sense, they're just cognitive, ramblings. So it also disvalues gods or goddesses. And this has to do with the fact that a god is not so much a description that you now know there's a supernatural being, because there could be supernatural beings that are not gods. So just supernatural being doesn't get you to the label God. And a supernatural being that has a lot of powers, in a sense, may or may not be a god. The fact that it may not is the issue. So you could have a supernatural being with a great power and still, in a sense, not be a god. So to me, the term God really is a signifier for authority. And that's like in the Bible, you see things like Lord. And that has to do, in a sense, just like in feudalism in England, it has to do with, in a sense, a land ownership or title ownership. In a sense, think of it that when they're saying it that way, what they're saying by the term God is that God has a titleship over the world or whatever, or over people. And to me, that right there, whether a God is real or not real, that someone is offering something that can remove my rights at will when they say God, this supreme ultimate authority that judges life and death or whatever in a lot of religions. So the fact that they're saying that is a being that I would find immoral, whether it is a fictional being you're referring to is immoral, or whether it was an actual person like Hitler or whatever that's being immoral by behavior of force. So to me, that thus inspires anti-theism. And this is, like I said, evident that even if a God could be real, you must reject this being that could and desires to circumvent human rights. And such a being does not deserve worship if it was even real. And I see no reason to think it is. And then it also understand that axiology for atheism is not just the rejection or the challenge of the negative things. The seeing of value is both positive or negative. And so the value, an axiological position for atheism also sees the value of the humanity and humanism, the value of good, the life worth and life meaning, life flourishing. So that's why I say sometimes that I believe that, I wish for human betterment universally. And I want to have, justice for all people, not just someone who looks like me, sounds like me, believes or thinks like me. So it also, to me, is a valuing of ethics. It's this positive, pro-social connectedness, both individually as well as a group well-being, and mutual helping. It's the desire, motivation that I always say that we rise by helping each other. We get further in life by us all working together and figuring things out collectively than we do with only staying isolated and doing everything on our own. At least that's how I see it as an axiologist. And to me, it's also a valuing of rights, of freedoms, of equality, of dignity, of responsibility. And to me, that leads us to the demand for secularism, that we have to let everyone have a right. We can't just say that I only want the things that I like. So it's about really valuing, human dignity. So an explanation of axiological atheism can be thought to often involve ethical and value theory reasoned, moral argument driven, apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, anti-theism, and for me, anti-religionism, and secularism as well as secular humanism. So the valuation moves up like a ladder, starting at one level of value and then moves. It's like saying that something is good and there's some things that are a little bit better. And so then they're in a sense of goodness, has a higher quantity. And then it's what is maximally best. Anyways, it works like a ladder of value. And that's the same way to me that you get to the axiological atheism in a sense, conception having all these seemingly sounding different philosophies actually in a sense are just what I see as the layers that build up why one thing is required to another. So in a sense, it starts in apatheism. And apatheism is basically, I see no need to even consider the concept of gods. It's just irrelevant. And as an axiologist, I start at it. I don't start with, try not to start with preconceived, conditions to the world or anything. If I just honestly look at the world that had no outside reference, is there anything that would inspire me to make up things like gods? And the answer to me is no. Because if I look at the natural world, and we do have people that, in a sense, are animists, where even children will think of the world in a magical way. But there's a big difference between thinking of the world in a sense almost like pantheism, like alive or whatever, at the most. It's not the same as a personal God and all this. But because we understand the social bonds we can have with other people, that also is not amazing that can happen where there's that confusion. So to me, that goes back to the agnosticism. When someone offers a confusion idea, we need to demand that they justify it. And then to me, what happens is sometimes we don't know things. I call it the God of the gaps. Science doesn't know things. We don't know things. Reason can't grab something or say that the external world, they want to say can't grab something that's somehow beyond everything. You're going to have to demonstrate that. You're going to have to prove that. And I really think it's disingenuous to say take things on faith. Because faith itself, in a sense, is a confidence, is what you're saying. So what are you talking about? So that goes back to me, like I said, the second thing is the agnosticism. It's basically the challenging of all these supernatural claims. Not just the God claim, but all these supernatural words and terms. And I think this is just rational that first that you don't know and you don't care. Then someone in a sense is offering stuff, and then your first thought needs to be, whoa, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Then if they push me more, right? I'm an axiologist. They push me more. Well, then I don't believe. Not only do I first had no reason to, I'm apathetic. Once you offered it, I'm agnostic. What are you talking about? And then if you're forcing me to come up with what do I think about what you're talking about? Okay, well then I don't believe it. Thus I'm an atheist. And then you ask me, well, hypothetical things like, well, what if, it was actually true? Well, then I'm anti-theist about it. I'm anti-theist because the God that you're explaining is monstrous and violates my human rights and violates and puts down the rights of others, devalues humans, puts itself above us. I automatically have something against that. As I feel that it's just rational and a supporter of human rights and justice to demand that every person has that, of freedom from such of a monster, whether it's an idea I'm challenging or if it was an actual being acting this monstrously. So then to me the other thing is, once we understand that that's being done, the anti-theism to me is against also the pushing of it. It's this things that religions do, that they have these I feel monstrous gods, and then they go out and push these monstrous gods. So anti-theism part could be against the religions that push these monstrous gods. But I'm also, if you ask me more, well, what about Damien, what about the religions that don't have gods? Let's just say that there is those things. So there's religions without gods. So, what do you feel about them? Well, to me, you're still asking the same thing. So I'll say it like this. To me, my anti-religionism is an ethical call because of the harm that religions do. And religions seem to have this common theme. Pseudoscience, pseudo-history, and pseudo-morality. And to me, because that they're, in a sense, because of that, lying and actually shaming people, people have hated their own family. Like a religion, the one thing that's interesting is you could have a change of faith and then you can destroy a once happy family. And the only thing that happened was just the faith change, which supposedly is an interpersonal thing. So, but to me, then it's as an axiologist, I feel compelled to be anti-religionist. I don't feel I have a choice. If you're pushing lies, you're impressing those lies on indoctrination onto people that I have, especially children. I have a duty to try to do something against it. And so to me, the doing of that, though still has to come with my understanding that I myself value everyone's individual self-ownership, their right to self. So I would never, even though I wouldn't to be, the stopping of hereditary indoctrination of children into religion, I want that to stop. I want child freedom as much as I want that right of human rights to their own mind as I want for anyone. So because I still want that, though, even for the believers, I feel everyone has the right to believe as they wish. It's when you push that belief onto others, it's when you start to do behaviors because of those beliefs and they're harmful to societies that it has to be addressed. And if they're illogical, then me addressing them, whether to someone or about someone, is valid because they're invalid. And still doing this, I still feel freedom of peace and freedom of speech and freedom of, the fact that they have freedom of religion. But I think that there needs to be an understanding. This also means that I have a freedom from religion. And that's why I support and think the only way you can honor the dignity of others is truly by secularism. And I think that realization, for me at least, as an axiologist, demands humanism. That realization that once I realize that we have to be understanding of others, then that puts me in a different position of care, a different position of what my position is. And so I feel like, it's that ladder that goes one to another. So, and to me, it's let the truth, though, destroy all lies. I mean, I don't know why someone would want to champion falsehood. And it's said that which can be destroyed by the truth should be. And being that religions clearly contain lies, destroying them is a support of the truth. And that I will joyfully look forward to. The truth, though, destroying all lies, and especially these religious lies that are forced and indoctrinated onto children and others, as soon as possible. And thankfully, I and others are willing to help in this worthy endeavor. Because to me, honest reality revolutionaries should feel the gusto of worth in this valuing, championing of the truth, and of justice, and of reason itself. We, seekers of the truth, battle for more than just God beliefs. One of the universal hallmarks of religion is a superstitious belief in supernatural beings, or things, aka, to me, animism-influenced beliefs. They can vary in form, and their importance, their significance, or their application of these ideas of these superstitious supernatural beings can be different. But in some way, they are clearly found in a basically original form of this superstition to supernaturalism. It seems to permeate almost every religion. And to me, it's understanding that what you're appealing to is this make-believe. Your justification for this make-believe, no matter how many words, can be boiled down to you have faith in it. You have this confidence in it. You have this hope in it. All are equally invalid and not evidence. And there's just not evidence for this magical, wishful thinking, this set of superstitious claims. However, though, the belief in gods, to me, aka paganism influenced beliefs, need beliefs such as superstitions, aka animism influenced beliefs, to even exist. That's why, to me, animism is the core thing. They're all appealing to this somehow magical something in a natural world. Alternatively, the beliefs in superstitions, aka animism-influenced beliefs, does not need the belief in gods, paganism-influenced beliefs, to exist. Therefore, to me, we must fight more than the beliefs in gods to remove this infectious set of belief ideas of something more than natural. These superstition, animism-influenced beliefs. And you hear animism said sometimes when people say, well, I'm spiritual, not belief. And I don't have a God, but I know there's something, some energy, some... Okay, if you don't have a God, then you're an animist, because it's what you're explaining. And to me, really, you can try to remove a God when people like to go, well, I know there's a God because how can you explain the Big Bang? So in a sense, to me, they're projecting beingness to an animistic belief. Their belief that something magical is the start of everything. That's what they're really believing or appealing to. Something magic had to be because natural can't do itself. But that something magic is an animism-influenced belief. And to me, it's one of the universal hallmarks of religion itself, or religion in general. And to me, that's something we must understand and then address before we can ever hope to fully eradicate it. Almost everything that, though, is logically impossible is likewise contingently physically impossible, just as almost everything physically impossible is likewise contingently, probably logically impossible. I wish to more than just simply inspire doubt in gods and religions. I wish to expose the errors in the believing process that even allows such beliefs to be maintained as reasonable or warranted or justified or supported. I wish to highlight the many errors in thinking needed to offer such beliefs, as well as the many faulty presuppositions made or used trying to maintain them as actually being reasonable beliefs. See, it's like this. If one feels something requires faith, to me, an unsupported, cognitive, active acceptance, to see a thing as real without realizing it, one is affirming that such a thing is not likely a true part of reality, or the faith would not be needed. My atheism is a well-defined and philosophically rich non-belief or disbelief position or style, and I try to make sure it is well supported in all my thinking, especially my axiological atheism. I want people to understand, and I want to help others, so if they feel the same, they can have maybe my words or go have something to go investigate. Axiological atheism, or axiology itself, is value theory or value science. To me, a social science, in a sense, then you're adding this to your atheist understanding or your atheism tool to investigate or to analyze. Or to put it in an easier way, think of it kind of like this. It's moral argument or ethically driven strong atheism, disbelief in gods, and also strong humanism and secularism. But it's also, in a sense, like an ethical version of anti-theism, and for me, an ethical version of anti-religionism. So in general, axiological atheism, can be understood as ethical and value theory reasoned, moral argument driven atheism, anti-theism, anti-religionism, and secularism and secular humanism. And this basically boils down to me the strong belief as well as strong secularism and humanism. So, to me, it's about an axiology thing. It's about being aware of value. It's about seeing it. It's about trying to understand. It's really, to me, also like a removal, in a way, in the sense of black and white thinking, to where everything has to only be exactly one point. Because to me, axiologically, we can see variations. Like there's black, there's a little bit less black, there's a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less, and at some point moving on to another color. And so in a sense, or white, there's a total white, and it's getting darker, and then it becomes black or whatever. So it's about seeing that everything. So to me, I, as an axiologist, it inspires me to want to be a rationalist. And I consider myself to be a methodological rationalist. And so I investigate using ontology. I expose using epistemology. And I judge things using axiology. I'm not a skeptic, though I do have skeptic friends. And I do use methodological skepticism which is basically like a scientific type of skepticism. It's more about rational doubt. It's basically truth-seeking instead of having some sort of a doubt persuasion. It just is saying that everything demands that it proves itself in a sense. So I try to approach that to my ideas. And to me, being a rationalist, you may know it or not, is going to be prone in a sense to axiology. And because you want to understand, so you want to think, you want to see the variations, so to me, once you do that, to me, for me at least, that when you look at the evidence that's available, I think that the strong atheism conclusion is just the one warranted. And also think that the agnosticism is warranted. The fact of what are you talking about? Let's see. Well, this brings me also to the thing of a lot of people appeal to authority. They do this because we desire to have proof for what we say. And so, but this reminds me of my stance on the difference between authoritarian truth seekers and anti-authoritarian truth seekers. So, authoritarian truth seekers, who to me use authoritarian personality to understand, these are generally religious people, but it can be others, to understand, analyze, confirm what they think is truth. And sometimes their authoritarian figure may not be, say, a deacon or a pastor. It could be the Bible itself. It could be their belief, their idea of God. It could be what they think faith is. They think faith is somehow some authoritative, truth outside of them. It doesn't mean it is. It's ridiculous. But I'm saying that these are appeals to authority in a sense. They certainly are utilizing an authoritarian personality to understand things. And to me, this is immediately limited into what you can think of as truth. Authoritarian personalities is a state of mind or attitude that characterized by belief in absolute obedience. And see, that's what it's supposed to be, obedient to your faith, supposed to be obedient to the Holy Spirit, or obedient to God, or obedient to the Quran, or, And it's also, to me, it's about submission of thinking. You're supposed to think correctly. Well, I want to have open thinking, free thinking. I don't want a thinking appeal to authority. Well, God wouldn't want me to think this, or, But generally, the authoritarian personality is going to be common in religions. The more that religion appeals to an authority God or an authority book or authority, I would imagine that the less that they do, it's probably going to be less. So, but it's about ideology, and that's what to me the personality is prone to. Which is into accepting authority or hierarchical organization, and this right here is an effect to their intellectual aspirations or thinking, and also their human relations. And this includes, how they themselves are probably authoritarian beyond just their thinking. Or the authoritarian to the thinking of others. You see authoritarian how they raise their kids with authoritarian personalities, and they're religious. They will hurt the kids if they don't, learn correctly or whatever. So, and not saying they all do that. I'm just saying that can happen because of the beliefs. So, it really is. It's about hindering or having some oppressive personality. Waging war to me on the truth acquisition ability. That even if truth is presented, when someone has their mind this, tangled with this authoritarian thinking personality, where you're just appealing so hard to the authoritarian personality of this believed God or book or whatever, or person, they believe is holy. oh, well, this holy, person said this. So my anti-authoritarian truth-seeking to me, which I'm an anti-authoritarian truth-seeker, is an anti-authoritarian personality to understand, analyze, and confirm truth. Anti-authoritarian personality is a state of mind or attitude that is characterized by a cognitive application of free thought, known as free thinking, and a philosophical viewpoint that holds that opinions should be formed on the basis of logic, reason, rationalism, empiricism, rather than authority, tradition, or other dogmas. Anti-authoritarian personality and thinking is the opposition to authoritarianism thinking, favoring instead the full equality of open thinking in the conducting of intellectual endeavors or human relations. And this is a flexible thinking. Free thinking is flexible. If you can prove to me that I am wrong in something, I am open to be changed. How open are you to have your ideas changed? Not just challenged. Having your ideas changed. I'm open to have no ideas changed. If there's valid and reliable reason and evidence for me to entertain that I should do so. So, and it's all about, to me, this personality of openness, this critical thinking about how you go about truth acquisition. And to me, it's an adherence to value, to the values of this open thinking and what it is the chance of producing in the accuracy of reality. And to me, these beliefs are endorsed by critical thinking, that this way, this process of being open, is the way to reason, and to certainly right reason, which entails this immediate opposition to authority thinking as a means of confirmation and truth attainment. To me, authoritarian truth seekers are the only real ones that are being and acting in a way or thinking in a way that's truth-seeking. You cannot be a closed-minded thinker and say you are doing the best model of truth-seeking. Moreover, to value faith as a means to know reality or the truth of something is a demonstration of a cognitive thinking or mental weakness of wanting one's beliefs about reality to matter more than the actual reality. Faith in the relation to truth is at best wishful emotions over rational understanding, which could involve a true thing, but how would you know the difference? Just admitting one lacks knowledge is a sign of wisdom. Be open. What do you believe? What made you start believing that? How do you know that is true? So is there a chance that you could be wrong? What do you find least convincing in your beliefs? What would it take for you to see your beliefs are wrong? Think, if you were so against your beliefs, what things would you attack? What is the best chance that your beliefs are true that ever had? What's the best challenge that your beliefs could ever take? What is the best proof against what you believe? What you like should be knowledge. And you should want to know if your beliefs are wrong. Would you be able to let your beliefs change or let them go if you found out that they were wrong? Would you be able to let your beliefs change forever? To me, the answers are not only the thing that matters. Instead, it's getting them and getting your others, whatever, and getting yourself to hopefully rethink your beliefs. Hopefully help others rethink their beliefs. So this brings me to the way of a sound thinker. Sound thinking, to me, in a general way, is thinking, reasoning, or believing that tends to make foresight a desire to be accurate as one can, using valid and reliable reason and evidence. Sound axiological judgment, to me, is a presumptive value success. This is value judged opinions expressed as facts with a valid and reliable justification and evidence. In an informal and psychological sense, this is being used to reference the quality of cognitive faculties and how it relates to the capacities of particular individuals. Typically, we call things like this type of thinking as wisdom, discernment. In a legal sense, this is used in the context of the final findings, the statement or ruling. When we do an axiological judgment, we are making a judgment, a conclusion, and then the presumptive value success is that we can justify and substantiate or give a high warrant for that value we offered, or the disvalue. And then that is a presumptive value success. And this is based on a considering of a weighing of the evidence. So, my quick definition of axiology itself. Axiology is a philosophy, value theory, and a social science, which is called value science, or formal axiology, that mainly involves the what, why, and how of value. The way epistemology approaches knowledge. That's how axiology, in a sense, proposes and approaches value. And what is meant by value is value, good, worth, benefit, or usefulness. This also can be aesthetic, ideas, people, things. It relates to almost everything. And it's why something that is being in question or something being offered is of value, is of goodness, of worth, of beneficial, of usefulness, or it could be disvalue, unworth, or evil, harm, not good, whatever, and not beneficial, harmful, unuseful. Anyway, so it's all assessing and evaluating the words. So, how would you understand these things? Is what it's and how they interact. So, a shallow thinker, i.e., not a deep thinker. So, is a person whose thoughts are not reasoned and not methodological or logical or empirical. And so they're ones that talk quickly, without thinking. And I like to think of it as that people, so these kind of people, it's not that they're not thinking at all. It's just that their thinking is a reaction to everything coming in. They're not processing it, slowing down, investigating, trying to see if it could be wrong, not just confirming everything, but being just as eager to disprove it as to prove it. And often, you can hear them doing tons of, boastful things without a lot of substance. What I mean by boastful could even be that, well, I know there's a God. Very boastful. Okay. What is your evidence? Well, I feel him. Okay, it's not evidence. And then how do you know the feeling is a God as opposed to a demon or another feeling or a ghost or just, your emotionalism? So to me, often these kind of people also push things strongly and loudly as if somehow this adds to the substance. And they do this before fully understanding what's really involved. Whereas a sound thinker is reasoned. And generally, they're using ideas that are based on reason. Or they're willing to change and amend based on reason. And, this is a result to me from a persuasion or an ethical desire for rational thought. And ethical and, ethics of belief. I have an ethical belief that I want the truth. I want to desire and support truth. As a first debate process, a sound thinker commonly poses questions to understand, slowing down to the assessing of all the factors involved, then builds their argument or ideas into cases and arguments against them. Sound thinkers, to me, just don't use faith. Faith is not a reliable method to anything. Faith is amount to an axiologist, we amount to feelings. Okay? You have human feelings. You have feelings about things. You have confidence about those feelings. That actually proves absolutely nothing in the real world. And I've heard, Damien, I have an atheist, but, I also have faith. And they'll say something like, well, I believe in gravity, though. Like they have faith in gravity. But, is that, exactly faith? No, that's not faith. Not faith is the way religious people are using faith. They say, you ask them, you believe in a God? Yes, I do. How much do you believe? I have 100%. How do you believe that? I believe it on faith. Well, now they just offered faith as the justification or the evidence, which it's neither. So, and I don't think that people understand it correctly. You don't have really faith in gravity or gravitation as this fundamental force. You have proof. And even lacking direct proof, you would have inference that there's gravity. And if even less evidence, you have conjecture that you could use about gravity. None of those things require faith. And all of those things would only be brought into more chance of confusion if faith was added. And to me, it's like this gluttony of thinking with faith. What if you allow faith and that's what you want to put your evidence or justification on, what could you stop wanting to have? What could you close out? Could you just pick and choose? And sure, why? What could possibly stop you if faith itself was your way of understanding or knowing anything? So, if you fell down the stairs, you would immediately know there's gravity. You do not need a God for that. And, you don't need faith because faith is, in a sense, strong belief without evidence. Because if you have evidence, you just say the evidence. You don't appeal to faith. And so, It should be about what's warranted, and faith is not warranted, because faith is, in a sense, is just confidence, but confidence will be built from something. If it's rational, if faith wants to be offered as rational, and faith is some kind of hope, okay, but rational hope or rational to have these kind of things would mean that they would have to have something that is making you believe this is true, which would have to be some valid evidence outside of faith. And to me, no amount of beliefs really should go outside of a justification that's, valid. And sound thinking to me in general is thinking that is critical, reasoned, it is belief, investigating, that tends to make foresight a desire for accuracy, as one who can produce valid and reliable reason and evidence. So let's get to dogmatic propaganda and disciplined versus disciplined rationality. Dogmatic propaganda is what religions produce. They produce this nonsense, bold assertions, these bold claims, these bold postulations, these assertions from nothingness, and then they just push them like, on people ad infinitum, just endlessly, without any justification. And to me, it's this rationalists or the fideists, the faithism believers, that promote this dogmatic propaganda. Whereas, in general, atheists and us anti-religionists mostly promote disciplined rationality. And I'm not saying that atheists can't be irrational, because I've talked to a few who certainly must be to hold the positions they profess. But anyways, dogmatic propaganda, though, is commonly a factor of religions and people that use faithism or fideism. And its accommodative motivator is because of this flawed irrational thinking that they want to support, and don't really have, the means of doing so. And so to me, it's about getting these infected beliefs out. This adding faith is like a fertile ground you're fertilizing so that you can plant logical fallacies in. Because when you start with faith is going to get you to any kind of truth, the only way you're going to support that is by lies, by delusion, confusion, misleading, just logical fallacies in general. That's the only way you're going to get to that and make it until you can try to make it sound reasonable, because it's just not. Appeals to emotions. I hear this all the time. So, if you believe in one God, I know you're a follower of dogmatic propaganda and cannot, obviously completely follow disciplined rationality. Someplace in your thinking, there's an error. I'm not saying that the theists can't be bright. They can be very bright. They can even rationalize their arguments with the logical fallacies and misleading contradictions and whatever other nonsense they contain. So at that point, it's why I often say, because it's not all or nothing. It's not like I'm saying that you can make a judgment universally. Every theist, that every word that comes out of their mouth is somehow, bad. No. Oh, I'm sure they can live a life and be extremely disciplinedly rational in everything except this nonsense that more than likely they learned as a child, because it's like 73% of all faith believers in the world are born in countries or in areas and that the faith they believe is the dominant faith. It's more about geography. So I am not proclaiming again that all atheists are always rational, as irrationality is a revolving door. It can go right in and spin right back out. So people believe, otherwise, to me, are stumbling their thinking. So, but this still does not justify, people's belief that somehow, atheists are using, this ridiculousness to to rebuff the concepts of gods. The concept of gods, the belief itself is intentionally offered without anything to support it. And thus, it is offering itself, in a sense, either, as just a misleading delusion, or an actual intellectual error that a person is making, or it's intentional lie. And I know most people are, brought into religion because of their family or their culture. Yeah, so then you brought into it from an unjustified way. And it's not that the way itself means it's untrue, but it's that the way itself is not a way to confirm its truth, so you don't know. You were just told this and you accepted it. It is not the same as knowing or having evidence that this is rational. Disciplined rationality is motivated by principles of correct reasoning. The emphasis on valid and reliable methods or theories leading to a range of rational standpoints or conclusions. Understanding that concepts and beliefs often have consequences. Thus, hold an impartialness to what you consider truth. Truth is a value judgment. It's a conclusion. It is not some sort of a never-ending thing that can never change, because to me, truth is, in a sense, a vantage point. How much can science understand of something, has to do with how, in a sense, its truth, its conclusion. The more we understand, the better we understand its truth. So justified, to me, it's going back to these fundamentals. That how do you get to knowledge? What is sound evidence? To me, it's basically an easy way to follow is that justified truth equals justified true belief equals evidence, but justified truth is the issue really. It's the belief is just the opinion that you're offering the claim. So it's really a justified truth that I need to. And in general, I think that when we're willing to offer these things like faith, which cannot substantiate a justification, then we're starting with a logical fallacy. That this thing is even meaningful in the conversation. Faith is not relevant to a conversation because, in a sense, when you're asking for evidence, it isn't evidence. What you should be offering is reasonableness, verification, and other things that can produce actual certainties. Not things that are, at best, leaving you with just uncertainty. You take mystery, you add this belief in supernatural, which is more mystery, and you add it to mystery, and you equal mystery trying to explain a mystery, leaving you with yet more mystery. You need to have the ability to understand relevant issues with clear, decisions. That way you can get clear conclusions. Disciplined rationality attempts to understand the justification or the lacks of justification in propositions offered and beliefs concerning various epistemic features in the beliefs, in the truth offered, and in the knowledge being claimed, which includes the justification, warrant, rationality, the reliability, the validity, and the probability. And so, to me, the terms sound thinker, shallow thinker, dogmatic propaganda, disciplined rationality are terms I created. I didn't research to see if anyone else did, but those are how I use them, at least. And so I want to address axiological. I'm talking about how do we know things, or how do we know something is good, and why faith is not. Because faith is as a presumptive value failure. You're offering something that absolutely has no value of substance to it to know one thing from another. And let me tell you something, the people who believe your God myth is an axiological presumptive value failure. So I'm an axiologist, a value theorist, and an atheist. And the claims of God are a presumptive value failure. Simply, If you presume a thing of value that you cannot justify, then you have committed an axiological presumptive value failure in the fact of transmitting the warrant for your conclusion or your assertion. Axiological presumptive value success. The sound thinker uses disciplined rationality, sound axiological judgment, to evaluate the evidence and then to understand or make a decision. In supporting the conclusion is valid and reliable justification built on reason and evidence, or reason by itself is logic. So axiological presumptive value failure. Shallow thinkers with undisciplined, situational, sporadic, or limited thinking. Unsound axiological judgment, lacking required evidence to make a valid success of the presumptive value, to make the decision and have it be warranted and justified, and lacking the support of a needed and valid and reliable justification. And often I get disheartened to see that so many people can look at the unknown, like say, what people say, but how did time start? When did all this begin? The unknown, which is devoid of any and all understanding, and yet claim to know that this somehow is evidence another for a God or another. How can they, with all honesty, even say that somehow they already know about an established yet scientific unknown, when all along what is or ever was, which I will remind you, is currently holding a confirmed status of unknown. Thus, it is still fully intact as currently unknowable, i.e., you simply cannot justifiably claim that such unknown is God or evidence of God, A, B, C, D, whatever. What really is a God anyway? The term God equals, at best, mystery that is used to explain the mysterious, leaving us with yet more mystery, thus explaining absolutely nothing. Claims of God are a presumptive value failure. Simply, if you presume a thing of value that you cannot justify, then you have committed an axiological presumptive value failure. May I remind you that in axiological presumptive value success, the sound thinker uses disciplined rationality, sound axiological judgment, evaluate the evidence to make his decision, or their decision, or her decision, supporting valid and reliable justification. And I hear that someone say, oh, well, basically, the difference between reasoning with evidence and without is what I'm talking about. Well, with or without a valid justification because of evidence. As in, you can claim to know the value of something you cannot demonstrate as having good qualities to attain that value claim understanding, then you lack evidence of the thing in question when you try to validate its value. So it's about addressing the justificationism. The thing is countable or uncountable. Because if you offered me and you say that there's a God, I can't know if that's true. I can't know what a God can do. I can't know what a God, if it's just one God, or, it has multiple personalities. I mean, it doesn't, and this goes back to, having a justification. Faith is not a justification. Testimony is not a justification. And so to me, it's just no God, no evidence, no intelligence, and I mean by intelligent design, and no goodness evident in the world. Thus a valid atheism conclusion. No evidence. Well, to move past the atheistic null hypothesis, there is no God's God, in a sense, the null hypothesis is generally assumed to be true until evidence indicates otherwise. In statistics, the null hypothesis can be considered to be as no significance or no difference between the claim itself, that there's a God in the world, and the claim that there's no God in the world. If you can't tell the difference, then you assume that there's no God in the world. So the God question null hypothesis is always set at the negative, thus holding that there is no God. And as God faith is an assumption of the non-evidentiary wishful thinking, non-reality, mystery thing found in pretty much all God talk, until it is demonstrable otherwise to require a change. The alternative hypothesis, there is a God, is offered without proof. What is a God anyways? And how can anyone say they know anything about it for sure? Therefore, the results to a God being there is insufficient at best, evidenceless to the extreme, and they cannot in any way overturn a null hypothesis that there is no gods. No intelligence. Well, taking into account the reality of the world we do know, and what science can demonstrate, is that 99% of the Earth species are now extinct. And intelligent design at that point is ridiculous. 5 mass extinctions wiped out 99% of the species that have ever lived or have existed on the Earth. Therefore, like a child's report card, having an F, they didn't just fail, they need to retake the class. And thus, if that level is put on understanding if a God could be intelligent by the design we can assess that's left and is available to understand, it would have to take an unintelligent designer. No goodness. This is assessed through ethically challenging the conception of a good God, the assumption, the axiological presumptive value. As seen in the reality, though, of pain and harm of others, which there are many to demonstrate, that either a God is not sufficiently good, is not real, which is it? So, the God is supposedly responsible, then it would be responsible for the state of affairs of harm and pain in the world. And it would make that being that is responsible for that a moral monster. And this is true because of the problem of evil in the world, or harm in the world, or suffering and pain in the world. God would be responsible, remember, for all pain, because God made the conception of pain in the world to begin with. It's like a person creating a toy for your child, and that toy harms the child, and its design is harmful. They are responsible for a harmful design. So pain in life could be a lot less painful. as yet there is mass suffering anyways. In fact, to me, every child born with horrifying diseases at birth scream out against a caring, loving God who is all-powerful and couldn't do otherwise. Either your God is an evil monster, or your God doesn't exist. To me, an evil monster, I don't even get the point of staying hidden. And if you want to scare people and you want people to worship you, why would you stay hidden? Why would you not just show yourself and scare everyone? Ridiculous. Unlogical. The reality is the world could be different. In fact, even in this world that we do know, there's people that have congenital insensitivity to pain. These people cannot feel pain or can feel it very diminished, and they never have felt it the way we do. So the physical pain is actually not a thing because some of them live to 30-something, but God could have made us live longer without full pain. And so, I mean, it just shows that if a God existed, the God wanted pain, because this is the design of the world that the God made, the toy that harmed the child. And so I will go ahead and leave it